everyone. Welcome back to Rally Caps. It's a podcast for artists, entrepreneurs, and everybody in between. I'm Steven.
And I'm Eric.
And today's episode is a follow-up to an episode we released back in September, episode 92, I think it was, where we talked about the Canon C80. And that episode was different in that we were just talking about first impressions because the camera wasn't actually released to the public. It was just the announcement. But we chatted through all the specs and all the different things that were public knowledge at that time. Today's episode is very exciting because we actually have a C80 in hand.
Woo! Here
Let's
it is.
go. It looks awesome. It looks virtually just like a C70 in most ways.
Yeah, a lot of the same.
Eric has been working with this camera for a little bit now. He's working on a video with Canon specifically to show off the best parts of this camera. And today we're going to chat about Eric's first impressions with it, some of the differences between the C80 and the C70. And I always get a little derailed when I hear massive sirens outside of our studio windows.
I can barely hear it.
But that's fine. You all probably can't hear it anyway. So yeah, today is just like a deep dive into actual hands-on first impressions with the C80 and really excited to chat about that. Before we get into it, hey, just a quick plug. If you could help us with reviewing the show and rating it, that would be amazing. It takes like 15 seconds. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, we would really appreciate just a quick little rating and review on there. Or if you're watching this on YouTube right now, subscribe to the Rally Caps YouTube channel, like the video. It just helps us get the show out to more and more people that could benefit from it. Thank you very much. Let's talk about the C80.
C80, I love it.
All right. Great. Well, okay. Thanks for listening, everyone. So much. Appreciate you being here.
So good. It's basically everything I dreamed it would be so far. It is that, and zero complaints. I've only had it for like a week. Mm-hmm. Only used it like 2 or 3 times, mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, just first impressions, fantastic. The biggest thing that was on the spec sheet that everyone was excited about is the thing I am most excited about with having the camera now, and that's the triple base ISO, mm-hmm. which is just crazy. Like right now, I have a 24-105 L kit lens, mm-hmm. that's f4, and I have it on 12,800 ISO at f4 with 4 stops of ND, and it's a clean image, like a perfectly clean image, yep. No blown highlights, full dynamic range, mm-hmm. smooth, no chromatic noise.
Yep. It's pretty exciting. Great. And it's kind of new territory for Canon users also. Yeah. The idea of dual native ISO, let alone a triple base ISO, very, very new territory.
Well, it now makes, it's crazy because it now makes a lens like this perfectly usable within this studio, mm-hmm. which it was not in the C70.
Yeah.
Unless you wanted to light something.
Yep. That
alone is obviously the reason why so many FX3 users are like, this is why this camera is so much better than, the counterparts. Yep. Now that it's in this body, and then on top of that, mm-hmm. full frame.
Yes.
Insane.
2 massive upgrades.
So now...
Because the C70 was Super 35 for those who are unfamiliar with that camera.
Super 35. And then you could like punch into 16. And you don't really ever want to do that. What's cool about this one is that I can punch into Super 35. Mm-hmm. And I haven't tested this yet, but it almost looked like the image was stabilized much more on the Super 35 image, which mm-hmm. makes sense because it's pushing in to the sensor. Mm-hmm. And that was, I want to test it with a lens that doesn't have image stabilization, because with the 15-35 on the Super 35, it literally looked like gimbal smooth on the
15-35 is that the one that
yep. Which is great because I think Braxton was saying it. He's like, well, your 15-35 is no longer the lens you once loved on the camera if you're shooting full frame now. And I hadn't really thought of that all too much. And then it was like, okay, well, if I just want it to be, I just punch into Super 35 and we're good.
And you get all the kind of familiarities that you'd have with the C70.
And potentially a smoother image if what I'm predicting is true.
Yeah.
Is true.
But you'll probably shoot full frame more often than not.
Yes. Yeah. Especially like I look at this right here and I'm shooting f4 on full frame, mm-hmm. and the fall off looks like 2.8 on Super 35.
Yeah.
And I punch into 105 and it's like insane.
Yeah,
Like the fall off is insane.
It's that same feeling of going from your first crop sensor, like DSLR or mirrorless camera, to a full frame camera.
Yes.
It's like, oh,
Whoa. It's not as drastic,
No.
but you definitely notice a difference if you're like regularly doing filmmaking.
Yes.
What I'm really excited about, which I haven't discovered yet, I'm going to let you maybe take the conversation for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I would love to go grab my EF 35 1.4.
Okay.
And see what that looks like on the full frame sensor.
Oh yeah, for
because
sure.
I'm only used to the 35 look with the 15 to 35 on the C70 at f2.8 on Super 35.
Yeah, go get something
That was
shallow.
that was a lot of words.
That was a lot of words. Here, wait, we have the,
But-
is the adapter at the
No, I have an adapter somewhere around here.
Excellent.
Do you feel like you could hold the conversation for
I can riff.
a solid? You could even. Oh no! How about you just take the camera,
do first impressions?
look at it,
Excellent.
and then yeah. I mean, you've already grabbed it for a little bit, like the other day.
A little bit here and there. I think it might have been off while I was.
Oh,
I don't even know.
it's better when it's on.
I gotta say, this camera on is great. Battery, fantastic.
Great.
Look at that big chunky battery in the
right
back here. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. So for context, actually, maybe that could be a helpful, quick aside right now. For anyone who is unfamiliar with episode 92 when we covered it, or who's not like looked into the C80 at all, just a quick recap of that camera. It is a 6K full frame BSI CMOS sensor for that camera. Lots of amazing frame rate options. 6K 30 is the maximum internally. DCI 4K, 2K, great. There's a full frame mode and a Super 35 mode, as Eric was just talking about. Triple base ISO being the headlining feature, 800, 3200, and 12,800. So finally kind of competing with Sony in the low light realm of things. Still waiting to put this camera specifically through its paces on that, but I think Eric has already filmed a couple of sequences at both 32 and 12,800, and it's looking pretty great so far, which is very exciting.
The only chromatic noise I saw on 12,800 was when I was like underexposing outside with 10 stops on it.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know, I haven't like shot it properly.
For sure.
And I'm sure like in the setting where I'd actually use it, where it's much darker, it's going to look a lot cleaner.
And then the other two things that we were most excited about that we talked about in episode 92 were both the addition of an SDI port, which was a huge ask from everyone on the C70, was just adding an SDI port to the camera for a more secure locking connection for your monitors. And the other probably biggest upgrade is a very physical one, is a more robust screen as well, which is amazing. Clicks into place really nicely. That was a bit of a complaint that a lot of people had back when the C70 was first shipping. So clearly Canon took a lot of the user notes and feedback from that and have applied all of it in spades to this, and then really kind of came out swinging with the whole triple base ISO thing, because that was a industry first. I believe no other cinema camera has ever had triple base ISO, which is really, really cool. Overall though, very similar footprint to the C70. If anyone is very familiar with using the C70, the C80 looks virtually identical to it, outside of that SDI port that's kind of added to the noggin of it up top. I think it's like maybe like technically a little taller, a little wider, but like it
feels the same.
It's a C70 essentially, body wise.
Unfortunately, you can't use the same cage. Like if you used a C70 cage, you can't put
because
it
of
on
the
this one
SDI port.
because of that port,
Right.
Which is kind of a bummer because you'd think it would, and then we tried and it's like nah. Like at least the Condor Blue one I have.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just another observation, also something that I really appreciate about it is the fact that they removed not even removed, separated the hot shoe with the top quarter 20 mount. So instead of having like a combo, like choosing whether or not you want to use the hot shoe or attach a top handle to it, you can now have both at the same time, and that's an intelligent hot shoe. So if you want to run audio into the camera without using any cables, you can, which is also very cool because mics such as like the DJI Mic 2, I don't know if they might not have an adapter for Canon specifically, but there are more mics coming out now that have that intelligent hot shoe audio transfer. So if you wanted to like have, I don't know, like a wireless boom, for example, and just feeds right into the C70 as scratch audio, you could throw a wireless unit onto that.
What I'm wondering though, if that's almost a moot point, because if you have a handle there, it would be really hard to still place something within that hot shoe.
I guess it depends on the size of the handle.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you could rig it out in a way where it is like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe you have a smaller footprint handle.
I was gonna say if you use the stock one that Canon provides, it looks like there's a decent amount of room to just attach something.
You think you
back
would
there.
put like a receiver in there?
Essentially, yeah. I
You think it would fit?
It would, yeah. I mean, if DJI does, just to use the DJI Mic 2 as an example,
Yeah.
they have an adapter that you can add to the little recording unit. So you can put that in the hot shoe and then attach their recording interface to that. And then that will give it the audio feed through
Would be pretty
the hot
crazy.
shoe. Because then, that would be like a really great way to get scratch audio.
No cable.
Yeah.
There's another good point to make again. It is mini XLR.
Still, yeah.
Which hasn't really bothered me. I guess one note here is that the stock handle is not ideal again.
Yeah.
Like it is this shock mount for a mic. Like I can't tell you how many times I've had it rigged like this and I went to go grab the mic instead of the actual handle. Yeah. And then even when you do, you don't have the dexterity to the right. You just clip the mic on that side. So I'm going to be in the market for looking for a cage, whether I reach out to Condor Blue again and get that or go like
little bright tangerine.
Little bright tangerine.
Yeah.
I know those are pricey.
Yep. Wooden camera probably has some good stuff for it as well.
Sure. Yeah. But I probably put that wooden camera top handle back on it. I love that thing.
On this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Joshua gifted that to me. And I was like, oh, great. He approves of it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I feel comfortable with that.
Yep. That handle is brutal.
Yeah. It's like the sandpaper handle thing again, which like if you were going with a minimal setup, it'll do the job.
I just wish they put the mount option on that side. Because if you could have mounted that on this side, that would have been great.
Like an actual option.
Yeah.
Where you could could go either side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a little CNC.
Yeah, because
drill
this is basically symmetrical right here.
Right.
You could just flip it around
on the other side and then because most people are going to grab it with their right hand and it's the back of the hand that kind of interferes with that a little bit.
Most people are right-handed when it comes to picking up a camera. But I feel like a lot of the time I am grabbing this camera by the side handle. And then holding the lens on the bottom.
Yeah. Do you like having the extra like padded?
I do.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because a lot of times I'll just one-hand it.
Yep.
And just do that.
Yep.
And that way I don't even have to grab it.
Yep.
I can literally just like let it dangle.
I always really liked that on the C200 also. Yeah. Having that strap attachment on there felt really good all the time.
And
really
it's like nice and plush and padded.
Yep.
I just need to loosen it a bit.
Helps reduce the fatigue a little bit.
For sure. Especially with like documentary work. You're just shooting all day for wedding work.
100%.
You could just let it dangle on the side.
Yep.
And the great option about these cameras now and the stabilized lenses is like you could very easily shoot handheld all day. And so to minimize that fatigue with not always having to grip a top handle or carry it with two hands, you can just kind of let it dangle there, which is great.
Yep.
So I threw on the EF 1.4.
Yeah.
It's
just so shallow.
It's insane.
Absurdly shallow.
Yeah. It's absolutely nuts. So I'm very excited I would love to just test a whole bunch of different lenses on this.
Yeah.
I'm excited for them to continue to build out prime lenses on the RF side as well. I know the 50 is just going to look ridiculous on this, especially now that I'm so used to the 50 being on a Super 35 sensor.
Yeah.
I haven't even put it on this yet. So seeing that in full frame will feel very different as well.
Feel incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. Shooting it wide open at night.
Yep.
Like all of that.
It would look absurd.
Oh, I'm already totally obsessed with it.
But to talk about more, that's like all like top level observation, first impression type things. You have recorded a couple little shorts. You've recorded a full wedding day. What's your actual experience using it in working conditions?
So I just got really excited, which is not something I normally feel with new gear. The other day got really excited to just test it and see. And so, of course, I shot a coffee sequence. Because
it's a camera.
Well, that's what
else
do.
are you going to film with it?
Well, what's great is we've been building out this coffee section in the studio.
Gene has been doing a lovely job of that.
And it definitely is very gorgeous. And so Cyrus was making espresso one afternoon. And I'm like, let me just see what the full frame looks like here. And I told Steven immediately, like, I I really never would have attempted to do that with the C70 because baseline, even with I have put the 50 on it and it's gorgeous. Even with the 50, it would still be pretty dark and I'd be pushing at 3200 ISO and not getting a super clean image. This time I was able to shoot a mixture of 3200 and 12,800 on the sequence, and it was a perfectly clean image.
Yep.
And I could even shoot 12,800 and stop down a bit on the iris, and then I have so much more to work with, and I didn't have to light any of it. And I just got this insanely gorgeous sequence of just a couple of different shots. And that alone is going to motivate me to shoot so much more with this camera, because it just makes it versatile in every situation. And I never have to worry about peripheral things. I always forget ND. I shot with the R5C in New York City with my boys on the trip the other week. I was halfway down the expressway and I called Cyrus. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Can you please drive out to my house with an ND
Wait, you didn't
filter?
have a VND for that weekend?
He drove to my house and gave it to me.
Oh my God.
I was like, I feel so bad, but can you just spend the rest of your workday just driving out to my house? Because I do not want to miss out on having a
that would have
VND.
been awful not to have one.
That's the caveat to always shooting with the C70 is I'm never thinking about a VND.
Yep.
Whereas like he's shooting on his FX3 all the time, so he's always thinking about bringing that along.
I feel like it never leaves his camera.
Yeah.
pretty
I think
much
it's just
always
like
on.
attached to his lenses.
Yeah.
But if I'm going back and forth between a camera that has internal ND, and almost exclusively always using the cinema camera that has internal ND.
Yeah.
I'm really never touching the ND filters. So yeah, so the fact that this camera has you have an insane range. You get a prime lens on it, you can shoot anything.
Anything. Yep.
Like there are virtually no limits at all. You shoot wide open in almost complete darkness at 12,800. You're going to get a usable image, which like cameras have never been able to do this outside of the past 3 years. So it's just opening up that new side of everything.
Yeah.
That's incredibly exciting. I think what's even more exciting is that it's happening on the Canon side.
Yeah.
And so many people have wanted this for so long from Canon. So much so
And they're
that
finally doing it.
yeah, well, so much so that so many people left, unfortunately. But I feel like it's been a really fun experience to have stayed with it.
Yeah.
Almost as a challenge at first.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh,
Look, I have the things I've always wanted from Sony.
Yeah.
But they're on Canon cameras now.
yeah.
Yeah.
And, like I think everyone covets the RF50 1.2.
Well, it's an excellent lens.
Right.
It's so
like,
beautiful.
Having that on this kind of camera now is like, okay, feels like superpower. So yeah, I'm just thrilled to basically walk into any scenario now with tons of confidence, knowing that I don't need to light a whole lot. If I just find, negative fill over in this one area, then I will probably get a pretty great shot.
Yeah. Shape light more than add it.
For sure. Like that feels like the superpower more than
Like
anything.
shape existing light more than adding extra.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not like the component of lazy filmmaking or it's like, I'm only a natural light photographer.
I'm only a natural light filmmaker.
Obviously that's not going to be the case on, a set that's controlled.
Yep.
Like you're going to want to light it, obviously. But even just in the realm of work that I do, where I'm constantly run and gun shooting for YouTube, like
It's beneficial for the spontaneity
Yeah.
in creation to have something that has so much versatility packed into it in such a small form factor. Because it is still a very small form factor for a cinema camera.
Yes.
To have that level of possibility inside opens up so many possibilities in your head when you're just out roaming the streets, seeing cool pockets of light. Like knowing that you don't have to bring a ton of stuff with you can sometimes be the factor that actually makes you want to go make something. And that's really powerful. It's a really cool thing. And I think to your point about having, a prime lens on there and having like being able to do anything, I think it's just as true for like any 2.8 zooms now too, because of that triple base. Like you can use 2.8 in virtually any scenario now outside of like pitch black.
Yeah.
But it makes a lens like the, I think they might have released it at the same time as the C80 or announced it, is the 24 to 105 2.8. Because they have a constant 24 to 105 now that's 2.8. So essentially this lens that's all f4, but at 2.8 across that entire range is insane.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
To be able to use that during daytime very easily, wide open if you'd like to, because you have up to 10 stops of ND. And then at night, you could still, and I'd say like almost any environment that isn't like super pitch black in the middle of the woods at 2.8 at 12,800, and you'd still be able to be pretty okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really cool. I mean, and that's like a lens, it's massive, but
yeah,
it's like a one and done kind of lens.
Is it like a 24 to 70, like that big honker one?
It's pretty large. Yeah. There's also like a power zoom functionality within it. If it's kind of like, I think they marketed it as like a broadcast lens more than anything because of that power zoom ability in there. But I think for a lot of other creators too, that's like 24 to 105 is a massive range.
Yeah.
And all at 2.8 is crazy. Whether or not you want to lug that around is one thing, but like, that's just crazy that you have that kind of possibility now.
Yeah. Well, Cyrus was mentioning is it 24 to 70, the F2?
There's a 28 to 70.
28 to 70.
28 to 70 F2 from Canon, not stabilized, massive lens.
It's not stabilized.
It's not stabilized.
Well, he basically was like, that would be the lens that he would want on this camera. And then I was like, oh yeah, well, it's so massive. And then we furthered the conversation. I was like, well, think of any cinema camera setup.
Yeah.
And any lens in those scenarios is that big.
I was going to say that lens in this environment, it feels less massive and annoying than if you're using it on an R6 or an R5.
Sure. Right.
Because then, I mean, it's also just a different ergonomic experience too. Yeah. You're holding it just by the grip of, a mirrorless style body and rocking that with like one hand really a lot of the time.
Whereas front heavy.
It is absurdly front heavy, where this I actually think would balance semi nicely with it. And if it didn't, you could always just throw a V mount on the back, put it on rails, and then you have a still very beefy camera, but 28 to 70 f2 the entire range. Amazing. The only thing would be the lack of image stabilization on it, because there's only digital IS in the C80. It could be fine depending on what you're doing, but for a lot of handheld stuff, I think the lens stabilization is nice.
Yeah.
But and then Sony dropped to 28 to 70 f2 2 days ago. And it's like much smaller and lighter than the Canon one, which is very interesting. Now I'm suddenly interested in a lens like that, where I'm like, the Canon one is a honker, but if it's that much smaller and lighter, that's kind of compelling. It's interesting.
Here, you look at 1.4 on the 35. Just like go around the table.
Just go around the table, dude.
And
I mean, it's very nice. Can it focus that close? Oh, yes, it can.
Yeah.
Ooh. I mean, it's for context too, in case anyone is listening for the first time here, we have spent a lot of time with the C70, just made a feature film with it. We know the ins and outs of that camera and the way picture renders on that sensor very, very intimately. And so just right off the back of the screen, having this kind of reaction and impression is like very exciting to already notice a difference between what we were so used to and what this looks like now. I mean, it's a very big difference.
Yeah.
It's very cool. Yeah, that's...
Even just the way everything renders.
The fall off and everything is excellent. The EF 35 is actually looking pretty good on here too.
I know. Like sometimes you get chromatic aberration on that thing. Makes me happy I still have the lens.
I'm just going to really quickly... Oh, there's no SD card. I was going to shoot a quick little ad for Warpy Parker during the episode. That looks very cool.
I know.
Yeah, that's... Yeah. Right there. Yep. I mean, it opens up so many possibilities. It's a lot of what we talked about in that initial impressions, but just actually getting to be hands-on and less speculative and more actually excited seeing the results of that in real time. It's very cool to just see Canon throw like such a strong punch also. I should also note, I think we mentioned this in that initial impressions video in episode 92. The C400 they had released like 3 months prior to the C80 has all the same specs and more a little bit on the codec and picture front, and it's obviously a bigger camera. But I think the C400 was actually technically speaking the first one to like introduce the idea of Canon having triple base ISO in their cameras, and then they of course added it to the C80 as well when they released that.
Which shocked me.
Yeah. Yeah, they did a surprising job not really removing many features from the C80 compared to the C400.
Yeah, the fact that they're 6K raw.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's on right
Still
now.
full frame, still triple base, still SDI. Like a lot of those features carry over from one to the other. And I think they'll be an excellent pair of cameras too, because of how similar they are. You could have the C400 as a main A cam, and then the C80 is just the most natural B cam you could ask for to complement the C400.
Yep.
What's your favorite image you've made with this camera since getting it?
I mean, I barely made anything, so it's probably the coffee sequence.
Yeah. What was like the wedding day like though?
Well, it was so I didn't explain it well enough. We just used it as a B cam because
Okay.
Cyrus is on his FX3
Gotcha.
as
Okay.
main because Cyrus was the only shooter and I was just kind of assisting while being photographer.
Gotcha.
But I think one of the most notable points, we had a long lens on it most of the day. Also, we forgot to grab the tripod for the ceremony. So it was just a backup shot. Like,
Yeah.
But we definitely gaff taped it to a couple pelicans on a pew. Whew.
I just got chills thinking about that.
Yeah. Whew. But it was, I mean, in a darker church, no
Yeah.
problem at all.
Yeah.
Switched to a different XF HEVC codec
Yep.
to just be, you just don't need that big of a file off
You don't want to say the other 20 letters in
30
the
minutes.
alphabet too.
Don't need like a massive XF AVC file
Yep.
of the angle you're going to use for like 10 seconds maybe.
No, yeah, for sure.
But where we just lit the dance floor at the reception. So where the couple was sitting for speech reactions, it was actually really amazing to have 3200 ISO and a clean image with a 135 f2 on there.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
The EF one, right? Okay, yeah.
And the way it rendered bokeh on the street down below was pretty wild. Like you saw like moving car headlights behind them.
Oh, that's cool.
So again, would have been pretty dicey with the C70. Like F2 it just would have been a dark image.
For sure.
Whereas in this situation, we felt very comfortable with not having to light them at all. And it was perfectly clean.
Yep.
So I would love to, get it in a scenario where I wish I had it for Colorado.
Yeah.
Would have been amazing.
We did a lot of nighttime
Especially
stuff
like
at
the
house.
dance stuff, like
Oh,
them
yeah, that's
doing
true.
the dancing inside the Airbnb.
Yep.
Like that image was really dark on the C70,
For sure.
and I didn't want to push it anymore.
Yep.
Because I also didn't have a wide prime, so I was shooting 2.8
Yep.
at probably 3200
And
or
that
4000.
because there is only one base ISO on the C70 at 800. 32, do you feel like is the most that you like
Yeah,
to push
I don't like to push it past that.
Yeah.
It gets a little too grainy, a little too muddy.
It's not terrible at 32,
No.
but not ideal.
Yeah.
Certainly not a clean image.
Right. Yeah.
Like what this can do at
Right.
that 32.
To have that 15 to 35 2.8 on the body all day, and then you get to a scenario like that and just switch to 12,800 ISO, and then you'll get your highlights will probably be at 80 IRE.
Yeah.
Like it's great.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, really looking forward to scenarios like that. I'm really excited to like bring it on trips where I could even do YouTube stuff like filming myself.
Yeah.
Like again, that's why it's so great to have. Okay, but the biggest thing in the upgrade, I don't know if you've already talked about it a bit.
I was doing it while you were
The screen.
walking back and forth. The
You
screen,
can hear. I could try to get the sound.
the click.
Yeah. That gives an idea. When I make the video and review it, I kind of want to just like get it on a microphone.
Yes.
So you can hear
ASMR.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It folds in both ways, which is nice.
It's that one where like, I think that proves the point. The bing.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
you can actually hear it like disconnect from whatever metal components and magnet there is there.
And why is that such a big deal
Because,
for
yeah.
previous C70 users?
C70, especially in the first iteration of them producing the camera, the screen was a huge contention point. I remember Jesse Driftwood made a video about it where he was really upset with how floppy the screen got, which was fair. Like
Yeah.
with use, it got really, really wobbly.
Yeah, like a wiggly tooth. It was weird.
Yeah. And so with it being such an important component of a camera like this, where you are relying on autofocus so often, you need that screen to be able to tap and view and all that stuff. To have a really wobbly screen is really annoying.
And in fairness to Canon, I think they recognized that as a problem. And if you had it, they were repairing it for free.
Right.
Like you could mail your copy of the C70 in. They're like, this was totally a mistake. Like shouldn't have happened. We'll get it right.
And the second iteration, what it seems like, because I bought another C70 after all of those complaints came in, it feels much better constructed than the first rendition.
Yep.
And then this one just feels, who knows, like maybe it will start to wobble, but it feels incredibly firm.
We'll do a third episode in the C80 in 3 months.
To see if get any of that wobble.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it's like zero complaints. I'm so excited to use it for a ton of different things. And I'll be shooting some short films the next month. So that'll really put it to the test. And the short film that I'm making with the C80 is going to include a lot of low light.
Yep.
So just putting it in scenarios where we could utilize that and prove its utilization in settings like that to show the function, to show how powerful it could be without needing to light a scene. And yeah, I'll probably break that down a bit within that video or afterwards. Like we would have had to bring lights to this situation, but we shot it with available light, with the fireside, with the candles, whatever, XYZ.
The reason we keep harping on that point in particular too is because, I mean, I think it's fair to say that a lot of our background in filmmaking specifically really lies heavily in documentary style things. Literally a feature doc that we dropped, This episode is enough in the future actually that I think we can say, go watch Moving Still.
Oh, great.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. It's going to be out by then.
Is it after release?
Yeah.
If it's not going out Monday, then yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah,
go watch Moving Still.
Hey. We could have said that so many more times.
I thought about it earlier. I just thought you might have wanted to put this episode on Monday.
No, we have Matt's episode going out on Monday.
Got it.
Yeah.
Go watch Moving Still.
Go watch Moving Still, man. Go check it out. We'll leave it in the description. That's cool to say, finally. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Watch it. You've heard us talk about it for forever.
Yeah. We've said so much about the C70. Go watch the film that was mostly shot in the C70.
How good the C70 is.
Yeah. It's an amazing camera still. And now we have this C80, which is going to be awesome for future projects.
Yeah. Moving Still Part 2.
Still moving still. Is that what that's what I said in New York?
Still moving still.
Still moving still. I'm not gonna lie, I was so proud of that when I said that during the Q&A.
Hysterical.
I was like, I don't know where I pulled that out from, but I was so happy it came out when it did. I was like, yes, nailed it. I saw Sam Sheffer laugh a lot at that joke, and it made me very happy. Anyway, the reason we keep harping on documentary things is because not only Moving Still, but also because our background heavily is in weddings. That's how we got our start as just creative business owners and artists working for themselves. And that is literally the definition of documentary filmmaking and photography. And while we have worked on proper sets too, with a full cast and crew of people and proper grips and gaffs and actual lighting packages and all these things, that's not what we typically do. And it is very important to us to have tools that can work in a wide variety of lighting scenarios where we don't have to work with a team. We can work by ourselves or with just like maybe one or two other people and just work with what's available to us. Cause that's a huge part of the work that we do. So this specific set of features that the C80 provides is like a massive benefit for our style of work in particular.
I feel like at a wedding now, I would feel totally comfortable not needing to light stuff anymore. Like you could actually make images look beautiful, shooting it from the correct side.
Yeah, right.
And just using available light. There's always some available light. There's not going to be, a reception's not going to be just pitch black. It's a horrible experience for guests.
Oh yeah.
And so I think that almost gives you more power to be a documentary style event filmmaker or wedding filmmaker, because that does allow you to then embrace the feeling. Because this one that we just shot last weekend, I've shot with lights in this place before, and both times now I get the event coordinator coming up to me being like, people are asking you to turn off the lights.
Every
and it's
time.
like, I feel really torn about it, because it's like, I do not want to be affecting their experience. And yet, like, it's just done for the speeches and the dances. And it's like, they think it's going to be on all the time. It's not.
Yeah.
Like during dinner, we'll turn them off and you're not going to be blinded, but it's hard.
It is.
Yeah. So there's that other part. It's the same reason I don't like shooting flash during a ceremony or
100%.
You know, it's like you don't
100%.
want to force yourself in just for the sake of the imagery. Although the imagery is really important, you know, it's like, it's that fine balance. And so then being able to get a really, really beautiful image that's totally acceptable without having to bring those lights. And obviously that's so much easier.
Oh yeah.
I'm just having it in one small package like this, like crazy.
And even logistically, you're not dealing with guests and or event planners coming up to you, taking you away from a certain moment saying like, hey, so-and-so is like really not digging the lights right now. It's like, just remove that component entirely, blend into the crowd, do your thing.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
And you're right too. It does to a certain degree. Obviously it's nice to have control over the light and shape it, but there is a component too that's like, it wasn't necessarily part of the day.
Right.
And so you're capturing it even more authentically than you were previously.
Exactly.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, does genuinely matter quite a bit for the wedding world.
I've always been a bit philosophically disgruntled with that.
Yeah. Like lighting it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh no, I'm actually injecting production into this now.
Sure. Yeah.
Like it is gorgeous, but then that's the other reason why I don't really like flash at receptions either.
Yeah.
Because it, again, constantly like blaring flash.
I know.
So
it's brutal.
yeah.
It's tough I feel like it's a weirder like photo to video. I feel like you can get really awesome, authentic looking video. You know what I'm thinking of actually specifically is Jack and Allie's wedding, where in that tent, because I don't think you lit anything for that. Just C70 bopping around, hanging out. We were interviewing people, all that. I feel like the images all looked amazing.
Yeah.
On the photo side, when I was shooting without flash, it looked so bad.
Well, tent is so bad.
So bad. Like bounce in a tent for dancing, at least.
Yes.
Looks so much better than just the ambient orange red glow.
Or when it's not dark yet.
Yeah.
That's when it's brutal.
Oh, that is the flattest, most boring looking
where
light.
you have just crazy highlights in the background outside.
It's so awful. But it's funny is like, I feel like on video, it translates so much better shooting with available light in situations like that versus photo. I think the individual stills end up looking just so one dimensional and like really really bad, honestly.
I feel on paper, the stills cameras always say they have the same or better dynamic range than video. But my use case doesn't feel that.
Yeah.
I don't look at a photo that I took in RAW and like crank highlights back and lift shadows and be like, this looks cinematic in the same way that a log profile video I took in that same scenario looks.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, I've always felt that way about camera sensors. I'm like, how can, even like in a mirrorless camera that can do both photo and RAW and video, when you switch between the two, why does it look so different? You know, like it's the same sensor. Why does it look so different between the two? If you happen to know, please tell us.
I know.
I've always been curious about that.
Yeah.
But I think I'm starting to appreciate the dynamic range things more on now that I've switched to the Sony A7C II. Like I definitely feel the ability to expand the image in the shadows and highlights and have more latitude there, but it still doesn't look like the video that comes out of that camera either. It looks very different, usually a lot more punchy.
Yeah.
I don't know what the difference is.
I wish I could shoot all of my raw stills in Log 2.
Yeah.
And use a Rec 709 as my preset.
100%.
That would be awesome.
That'd be amazing.
I think the images would look so much better.
Yes. Well, we don't know apparently anything about the differences there, but the point I'm trying to make is that I think video does look better in those circumstances where you can't really shape light as much as you might want to, or if you don't want to at all, like you can make that available light look really, really good. And in the same situation for photo, for some reason, I feel like just from personal experience, it doesn't always look as good. You can't like match it the same way without bouncing some flash or whatever. And I felt bad. And I brought the Jack and Allie example up because one of the guests was like, hey, could you stop with the flash? Because he was like right behind me. And I was like blasting him right in the face with it. I was like, I'm so sorry, man. It's going to look terrible if I don't. It's just going to look really boring and ugly. And also slow shutter or high ISO to make it bright enough. And then either people dancing or just blurs or it's very grainy. So that flash is like so key in it. But this thing is going to be such a monster for stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like truly the one piece of gear that's making me very motivated and excited to do video again, like at volume, and feel excited about it.
Yep.
And I keep going to Cyrus. I'm like,
oh, he's on FX3 forever.
oh man, he will just ride that till he dies. But he has a really hard time arguing against this thing, which is pretty fun.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest difference now is the size and the ND.
Right. Which, yeah, if you want internal ND, it feels like it needs to just be a bit bigger. And
well, it has to be.
yeah, I agree with him. Like the size is incredible. Like the FX3 is great for everything that it is. But yeah, just having these lens options now, the autofocus that exists within this, built-in ND all the time. Anytime he screws on and off the ND, I stand there like tapping my toe just to make a point. I'm like, oh man, stinks that you have to take that time to look at all this time you're wasting right now. And he's like trying to thread it. I'm like, oh, dang.
And then when he's traveling and packs it, you're like, frick, okay, hang on. Let me just unscrew the top handle. And it's whatever works best for you, right?
I think what's really funny is in those moments, he just like goes super, super fast.
Yeah. He's like,
He'll be
I'm trying really hard to
fine.
make it. Yeah. No, dude, what are you talking about? It's already on. What do you mean?
Yeah.
The best part about this, at the end of the day, two best parts. One, Canon users broadly can finally have a camera that I think matches a lot of the features they've seen in other cameras, but within their ecosystem that they like.
Yes.
Which is amazing. It's giving everybody the same access to similar features, but you can just do it within an ecosystem that maybe you've invested heavily in for a while. You don't have to sell all your stuff just to get a feature that another camera is getting. You have it in this now. I'd be curious to see if any features from this translate into an R5C Mark II. If we start to see that trickle down into other cameras in their lineup, that could be really interesting. It's just a really good signal from Canon that they are listening to their customer base and also seeing what their competitors are doing and starting to actually like compete in that space in a really meaningful way. And it's very exciting and really cool. Doesn't mean you need to go sell all of your current cameras just to get this camera either. It's just what works best for you. And that I think is really exciting. And the second point is seeing how much it excites you on a personal level. I think that's the coolest part about new gear like this. And you even said it yourself, like you don't usually get excited about new gear, but this camera has lit something up in you.
Yeah. Well, I was excited about the C70 when it came out.
Right.
But this feels like 5 times that excitement.
Yeah.
Because I know what it's capable of and I know what we will be able to make with it. And that in combination of having more skills in the art form as well is incredibly exciting. And one other point I wanted to make is, with size comparison and Cyrus is always talking about being able to fly it on a gimbal. You can totally still fly this on a gimbal stripped down.
Yep.
I think what the benefit to it then is that when it is built up, I think a lot of filmmakers actually care to have a bit more weight and heftiness to be able to have a more stable image and less jitters.
On a gimbal or
No,
handheld?
then handheld.
Yeah.
So like natively, if you were to
agreed.
even just package it this way,
Yeah.
this is already, especially with like a fatter, the BPA 60, like battery, it's pretty stable in like a nice medium size camera kit that will give you the ability to shoot handheld in a pretty functional way.
Yep.
As opposed to 2 hands on a small mirrorless camera.
Just to keep it stable.
Right.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. The extra weight is honestly nice. If anything, I feel like you could bulk it up even more, put it on rail as a V mount.
And then it's a proper cinema camera.
Oh yeah.
Like
awesome.
it totally can live on a set now. I like fully believe that.
Well, because at that point too, you could just do away with this. Don't touch the screen on camera.
Yeah.
You have SDI out to your monitor. You have someone pulling focus for you. Like it's a different beast. Then you don't even have to worry about camera screen stuff. It's just all on monitor and you're good to go.
Yeah. And to that point, I'm like, the C400, like it feels like they put everything into this camera.
Yeah. That is the big difference that we've even said, like this feels very documentary style.
Yeah.
I think the C400 can absolutely be used in documentary as well. Like no question. It's still a super small camera, but it also just has some of the IO that proper sets need to function correctly on those sets. So that's the big difference. But I think for most people, this would be, it's such a well-rounded camera. It's so well-rounded. It's so good. And it's very exciting, again, to just see Canon doing this. It's really cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Nice. Well,
Now we just got to make stuff.
now we just got to make more stuff with it. It's a sweet little camera. Very happy we could actually follow up the first impressions video with an actual hands-on look at it as well. And truthfully, we'll probably talk about it more in future episodes because it does seem to be a really important camera for...
You better believe I'm going to be keywording the crap out of this thing on YouTube.
As will we on this episode on YouTube.
I think, I hope Canon gets their money's worth on sending me this thing because I have no problem putting C80 in the title and playing that game because I'm going to feel that way about it, that it's going to look and be and feel very special visually.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, if you want to see more updates on the camera, obviously subscribe to Eric's YouTube channel. I'd be shocked if you're listening to this show or watching it right now and you're not already subscribed to this channel. But if you want to hear more of our thoughts in depth on it, subscribe to the Rallycaps YouTube channel. Stay tuned here, hang out with us, become a member of the team, leave a rating and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff, and join our Patreon for free. I do want to make a note of that, actually. We are doing a Q&A episode soon. We're sourcing all of the questions for that Q&A episode exclusively from our Patreon group.
In the free tier.
In the free, you just a free member. That's it. Just a free member. Go join, make a profile there, and join the Rallycaps community on Patreon. Awesome. Leave a question there. Also, I'm going to pin the post that we're asking for questions from. So you can just leave a little question there and we'll answer it. And if you want to leave your Instagram handle in your question too, we'll give you a little shout out. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate y'all. And we will see you in next week's episode. And I don't know the topic of it. And you'll find out then.
Sure.
Great. Awesome. Okay. Bye.
See ya.